Hey, it's Maximo and welcome to Maximo's Travels. This video is my second touring around Tucson, Arizona. I start off by visiting the Arizona-Sonora Desert Museum, where I'll see rattlesnakes, interesting geology and minerals, a huge mountain lion, animatronic dinosaurs, expansive desert landscapes, and oh so many cacti. I'll have breakfast at an iconic Denny's diner, visit my first US casino, and we'll drive along the sublime Cactus Forest Scenic Loop Drive in the Saguaro National Park East, where we'll see yet more cacti and yet more stunning desert landscapes. And we'll visit Biosphere 2, an outer-worldly scientific experiment that went terribly wrong. Explore its dark history and its stunning architecture. Join me on this not-to-be-missed video as I continue to explore Tucson, Arizona. As I mentioned in my previous video, Joe had come to Arizona primarily for the Tucson Bead and Mineral Show. She'd come to Arizona many times in the past, but it was my first visit. So I dropped Joe off at one of the myriad of mineral and gem shows and proceeded to go to the Arizona-Sonora Desert Museum. You can check out the Arizona playlist if you're interested in the mineral and gem show video that I did. The museum was about 30 miles and half an hour northwest of the Four Points by Sheraton hotel that we were staying at, located near Tucson Airport. I made my way to the very large, well-paved car park and made my way to the entrance. Adult tickets cost around $29.95 US, around about 48 Australian dollars. Quite expensive, as was just about everything else we found about our stay in the United States. Opening hours do vary according to the season. When we were there, the opening times were 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Although in the summertime, it opens earlier and closes earlier. The museum is huge. It spans about 98 acres, and it's a zoo, aquarium, botanical garden, natural history museum, and features an art gallery, extensive gift shop, as well as a couple of restaurants, animatronic dinosaurs, and at least a couple of miles of walking tracks. The museum covers a fascinating glimpse of the Sonora Desert, which is huge, covering parts of California, Arizona, and Mexico, as you can see on the map. The museum sits high in a hill and offers commanding views of the Saguaro National Park and its desert. It also provides visitors with heaps of information about the desert landscape and its flora and fauna. The reptiles were the first exhibits that I visited. There were many different varieties of snakes here, including sidewinders, garter snakes, and many different species of rattlesnakes. They were some of the most venomous snakes in the world, and I was glad that they were on the other side of the glass than I was. The rattlesnakes in particular looked fairly ominous and deadly. Next, I entered what looked like a man-made cave and entered the nocturnal exhibits. Unfortunately, it was far too dark in the tunnel to get any useful footage. And I didn't see that many animals in here either. Back out into the daylight, and I was amazed at the desert landscapes before me. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before, although the harsh light did remind me of the Australian sun. The Earth Sciences Centre was set in a replica limestone cave. It provided plenty of information about the history of the desert, as well as an extensive collection of minerals and gems, including many different types of crystals, ruby, amethyst, and emeralds. One of the key features of the mountain woodland area was the mountain lion. I didn't realize this majestic creature was just so big, and I was amazed at how close we were able to get to it, even though it was through quite thick glass. I then proceeded along some of the walking tracks that exceeded a couple of miles in length. It was a beautiful day of about 18 degrees Celsius, around about 65 Fahrenheit, and not a cloud in the sky. There were plenty of dinosaurs about though, animatronic ones, and they did look pretty good and sounded, well, pretty good as well. I continued walking and took in the desert landscape. We're at the hummingbird aviary, and I've seen one, but I was too slow to film it. They're very fast and oh, there's one there. They're very fast little suckers. Try and get a photo with my camera and the zoom lens perhaps. These birds were small, fast and very hard to video. I did spend a lot of time getting these few shots. Apart from all the dinosaurs, there was a fairly extensive gift shop as well as a couple of restaurants at the museum. There was a quick serve grill that sold mainly chips and hamburgers and not much that was gluten-free to suit my dietary needs, but I chose to go to Octillo Cafe. The restaurant had a really nice decor and vibe and quite an extensive outdoor seating area. Interesting that after I sat down, even though the restaurant looked mostly empty, they started turning people away. The cafe had a pretty decent menu with a number of gluten-free items highlighted. I chose the mulled chicken, which was a entree, but a pretty big entree. So much so that I couldn't finish it. It was pretty good value as well, $25 US. And if you're wondering, mole is a traditional Mexican sauce, not a rodent. The dish was served with corn tortillas, rice and avocado. It was so hearty and utterly delicious. I do think that in Arizona, Mexican food is probably the best cuisine that you could aim for. So long as the dishes aren't too hot, they're awfully flavorful. I think this is probably the best meal that I had in Arizona. The bill for this meal, plus a drink and taxes, came to around $34 US. or just under 54 Australian dollars. Good quality, but pretty expensive in my view. I finished my meal and started walking back towards the exit, which was quite away from the restaurants and gift shop. I walked through a more formal garden. This highlighted and showcased so many different plants that are native to this area, as well as yet more dinosaurs. I've really enjoyed myself here at the Sonoran Desert Museum, notwithstanding all the dinosaur noises. It's been a beautiful day. I've seen so much. The desert landscape is truly amazing. As was the quite large gift shop that offered so many different products. I did just have to buy a couple of fridge magnets. The gift shop also included a small cafe where you could buy drinks, ice creams and coffees. I spent a couple of hours at the Desert Museum and then made my way back to find Jo. I dropped her off at one of Tucson's mineral and gem shows. This one was being held inside a casino, the Casino del Sol, which is located on the outskirts of Tucson. I'd made my way into the car park, parked the rental car, and then proceeded to meet up with Jo outside the casino. This is the first time I'd set foot in an American casino, and the complex was huge, featuring a casino, hotel, and golf course. Inside the casino seemed surreal. It was like a Mexican village, complete with fake sky. Inside you didn't know whether it was day or night. It was a real eye-opener.
The next morning,
we decided to go to Denny's for breakfast, an iconic American chain of diners. This is also reminiscent of my childhood, because the last Denny's closed in Australia in 1989. This particular one in Tucson looked like its decor was from the 1970s or 80s. Perhaps it hadn't been renovated since that time. Breakfast. Looks like you've got a feast there, Jane. Pancakes, eggs, bacon and hash browns. Oh, enjoy. Breakfast at Denny's was reasonably good and quite affordable, and importantly for me, had quite a number of gluten-free meal options. After breakfast, we jumped in our rental car and headed for Saguaro National Park East. This is located about 16 miles and 25-minute drive east of our hotel near Tucson Airport. We had come to the Rincon Mountain Visitor Center to drive along the Cactus Forest Drive. This is an 8-mile or 16-kilometer one-way paved loop that runs through the heart of the Serrano Forest. We had a quick look at the visitor center and then paid our entrance fee to enter the park. This is $25 per vehicle. The loop road is paved all the way and in fantastic condition. There's a fair bit of elevation. It rises and falls up to about 230 meters. The trail is also very, very popular with cyclists. We saw so many cyclists on our visit here. It was sometimes quite slow going because the road was quite narrow and there was barely enough room to pass slow-moving cyclists. So patience here is the key. The one consolation of driving so slowly is you get to appreciate the desert landscapes and all the towering cacti even more. We drove around the loop at a nice leisurely pace. We stopped often to take in the beautiful vistas of the desert landscape and all the huge cactus trees. It was truly a unique experience and one that I would highly recommend to you. And if you're more adventurous, there's many miles of hiking tracks that you can walk on. I'll leave a link for the details of this national park in the description. All in all, we spent a couple of hours driving around this loop without frequent stops. About 6 miles into the loop was Javelina Rocks. This area features rugged terrain and rocky outcrops, making it ideal to climb up to get commanding views of the surrounding desert landscape. You can stick to the well-maintained paths or go your own way amongst the rocky outcrops. We're also surprised to see a couple of artists painting the desert landscape. They just look so tranquil, happy and serene, and they did allow me to film them hard at work. All up, we spent about half an hour just wandering around these rocky outcrops. After getting up close and personal with the desert landscape, we headed back towards the small car park and to our rental car. It was time to leave the Saguaro National Park. We thoroughly enjoyed driving around this loop. The panoramic views from the various lookout points were nothing short of spectacular and provided a perfect opportunity to take heaps of videos and even more photos. The rich biodiversity of the park and its unique desert landscapes will forever be etched in my memory. Arizona and its deserts are such a unique part of the world. All the area and roads around Tucson, Arizona are just so dry and desolate. I was really amazed how this landscape could support a population of over 1 million souls. Tucson is just so spread out and so much space. I guess my one regret is that we didn't spend any time in the city centre. We did try to go there once, but we found parking a bit of a challenge.
The next day.
We'd spent 7 wonderful days in Tucson, with Joe primarily attending gem and mineral shows and myself mainly doing sightseeing. It was time to move on. We decided to book a hotel in the Oro Valley. This is located around 23 miles and about 50 minutes north of Tucson Airport, where we were staying. Our rationale for staying here was that it was much closer to Biosphere 2, the last item that we wanted to see on our Tucson itinerary. It would also provide us easier access to attractions in the north of Arizona, including the Petrified Forest, Meteor Crater, and Monument Valley.
Turn right onto Biosphere Road.
We were driving in the desert towards Biosphere 2. This is around 20 miles and half an hour further north than the Oro Valley, located in quite a remote location at the foothills of the Catalina Mountains. Biosphere 2 is a 3-acre earth science research facility and museum that has a rich history. It is the largest closed ecological system ever created on Earth. It's currently owned by the University of Arizona, and its mission is to serve as a center for research, teaching about the Earth's ecology and living systems. The complex was originally built as a secure, closed ecological system. It was completed in 1991, and it was meant to demonstrate the viability of a closed ecological system to support maintain life of humans in outer space. 7 different biodomes were built, including a rainforest, ocean with coral reef, mangrove wetlands, and savanna grassland, including some agricultural areas. It also included living spaces for a number of humans to cohabitate in this environment. The complex was only used twice for its intended purpose, once between 1991 and 1993, and a second time in 1994. Both attempts ran into problems. including low amounts of food and oxygen and die-offs of many of the different species of plants and animals that was included here. There was also a number of conflicts between the resident crew that were sealed inside this facility, as well as political issues and issues with the company that managed the whole complex. In 1994, the managing company went into administration. The facility was disused for a number of years and was in danger of being demolished to make way for housing. The University of Arizona took over the complex in 2007, and ever since it's been used as a museum and research facility. The first mission lasted about 2 years. I just can't imagine how 8 individuals could be totally isolated for that period of time. Inevitably, conflict broke out and a number of factions formed. This was coupled with poor food, which meant the inhabitants were quite hungry and there was a lack of oxygen. Then a number of scandals struck the project, including some of the inhabitants eating some of the seeds that had yet to be planted, and the infusion of emergency supplies of oxygen into the environment on at least a couple of occasions. Also, carbon scrubbers were installed, which was clearly not in the original plan. A lot of lessons were learnt from this initial 2-year experiment and implemented into the facility. In March 1994, another group of people were installed in the facility, but barely a month later, it all unravelled for them. There were severe financial pressures with the management company, and one of the crew members committed an act of vandalism, destroying some of the glass panels and letting outside oxygen mix with the oxygen in the facility. The second mission struggled on for a few more months, but ultimately disbanded and ended in failure. It's an utterly fascinating story. There's quite a few YouTube videos and documentaries available on the subject if you're interested to pursue this further. And while some would consider this $200 million project to be a failure, others consider it to be a considerable success, as so much was learnt from it, in that so much was learnt about human nature and biology. And if you're wondering why the thing is called Biosphere 2, there wasn't a Biosphere 1, well there was actually, and that is the original Earth, hence Biosphere 2 being a copy, a sealed replica of what Earth would be in outer space. It was utterly fascinating being here. Not only did we get to witness some of the crew quarters, but we were allowed into most of the biospheres. And the architecture was absolutely stunning, really like something from outer space, which I guess it was intended to be in a way. And Joe and I really did marvel about the size and complexity of Biosphere 2. I'm standing outside the University of Arizona's Biosphere 2. It's a mightily impressive scientific achievement. And just to think that the scientists in there spent 2 years in isolation. I don't think I could do it. It was really a fascinating visit, and I was quite intrigued at so few people that were visiting here. I'm not sure whether it was time of year, being just after winter, but yeah, so few people. And I was to learn that there was not only a conference centre, but there was a number of hotel rooms and apartments where you could book out. I think this is mainly used during science conferences though. Facility even had a nice little gift shop, and well, I just had to buy my obligatory fridge magnet. Had a really good time, and I would thoroughly recommend you going to visit Biosphere 2 if you're in the Tucson, Arizona area. We made our way back to our rental car in the car park and drove the 20 odd miles and half an hour back to the Oro Valley. Somewhere in the back of my mind I thought that this would be the last of the desert that I'd see. In reality, I was to see more desert landscapes and cacti that you could poke a stick at. And I've got to say it was magical driving back through the desert in the late afternoon. We were staying at the Holiday Inn, and in my next video I'll do a full review of that hotel. I do hope you've liked this video. If so, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Hit that notify bell so you'll never miss another upcoming video. If you'd like to support my channel, please consider buying me a coffee or hit that super thanks button. And until my next video from Arizona, you take care and bye now.